It goes from a cloud. Oh, there we go. Got it. Got it. Great. Thank you very much for that. So, hello and welcome to the Summit of Light. I am Neovi. I'm an artist and holistic healer. And I welcome you to our sex panel, where we are going to be discussing all of our personal topics of interest for our lives, our passions, and we're really excited to share it with you all. So, the Summit of Light is a gathering of minds and hearts from some of the leading figures in spirituality, nature medicine, metaphysics, and conscious living. We are healers, thinkers, and change makers from all over the world coming together to share our vision and human potential, our collective role in time and the meaning of life. The summit is sponsored by our friends at Living in the Heart and Empowered Media Solutions. So the two questions we are asking our speakers is, what do you feel is most important in life, and what do you bring into, how do you bring that into the world? But first, before we get onto those topics, I'm gonna pass the mic so that we can all introduce ourselves a little bit. So Chris, do you want to go first with your introduction, who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Christopher Nelson. I'm a Tai Chi teacher and Taoist, and that's what I do. And also an artist to some extent, work in theater. So.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm Iva Beasy. I am a certified sex coach, sexologist, and also a musician's wellness coach. I used to be a professional musician, but now it's I do sex coaching full time.
Beautiful, amazing. What incredible work that the world needs so much. So when I talk about holistic healing, I am a Reiki practitioner, I am a yoga teacher, and I have been blessed by my intuition, my higher guides, bestowing a practice combining yoga and dance together. So I'm a creative overall, bringing it all together to help the collective and especially women. And I specifically work around womb issues, womb trauma related issues, sexual abuse related issues, which is why this panel for me is a really big one. It speaks to my heart very much. So shall we begin with Chris? What do you feel is the most important thing in life? Quite a big question.
It is a big question. I think beauty, actually, and the awareness of it, and beauty in the grandest sense. Beauty as the expression of universal will, of creation, like recognizing that we're actually surrounded by beauty. Everything around us that is natural is beautiful. And so somehow beauty is an expression of the inherent goodness, I would say, of the universe, the inherent joy that we have from being alive in this universe. So it's not beauty in the plastic sense, it's the sense of recognizing gracefulness, recognizing networks that are in cohesion, right? So there's we have all these different terms for this, but there's a reason why when you go in nature, there's a moment of awe that we have. Mm-hmm. We see it and we recognize it and we're like, wow, and we live in a beautiful world, right? And that's, I think, something that we lose touch of, because then that recognition then becomes a source of joy. It's a source of connection. It's recognizing that there's an underlying positive pattern that is actually supporting all of creation, and we have the means of recognizing that pattern when we experience things like joy, when we recognize beauty. All these positive emotions that we have are, in a way, a moment of connection with that underlying positive force, which is actually
Absolutely.
behind the creation of the universe. So there. So
Well said. Well said. That was beautiful. Thank you. So how do you bring more of that into what you do, this appreciation of beauty?
You take a sledgehammer to people's kind of minds because we're so, you know, so
I like that answer.
so you have to have these practices that sometimes seem weird or bizarre or unrelated. Like, for example, I teach Tai Chi, which is a martial art, and so there's a lot of things where we train to how to, kick people in the head. But that's actually a way of breaking down some of the mental barriers that people have, so that you can come to a place where, like, okay, now you're fully centered in your body. Now you're experiencing your own body, and you've removed some of the layers that are clouding your mind. Now look at a tree. Look at a tree breathing right now.
Oh, I love that.
And isn't that amazing?
Great.
So that's what I do.
Amazing. I've never thought about that relation, but it's really interesting you're talking about this because, Tai Chi's martial arts is something that's interested me for so long. Like, I really want to do that, but I don't want to kick someone's head. So now that you've explained it like that, I love that. Thank you.
The kicking people and hurting people is just the outer layer. It's what you need to do, the internal work you need to do in order to get to the point where you're doing it. That's what matters, which is why a lot of people who study martial art and have at no point ever have been in a fight.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
you still get the benefits because it's not about fighting. It's not about the violence or anything like that. It's the internal work that you have to do on yourself in order to get to that point.
Absolutely. I mean, I watched a video, one of my friends recently, because I was talking to him. He's also teaching martial arts, and he showed me a video of his master. And it's when you watch these masters, the inner power, the way they execute these moves with such force, but it comes from such a deep place within, but so still and strong. It's wow.
Yep.
It's wow. It's wow.
This is where we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but I do think that especially for women, men and women essentially study martial arts for different reasons, or they should. But I think for women, finding a martial art, something like judo, jujitsu, something that's not less striking and more wrestling, is a fantastic way to get into your body and discover the strength and power of your body. And that becomes a base from which you can then step off to other things like your own sexuality, your own relationship to your body, and things like that. So I think it's too bad that it's not part of our culture, but studying a martial art of some kind, something physical that makes you hit your own boundaries, I think is crucial, especially for women.
So do you feel like teaching people Tai Chi and martial arts is a crucial part of the Taoist side of like your philosophy behind the sex?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
people,
Tai Chi is basically a physical expression of Taoism, at least in my view. So it's a way of, instead of explaining, like, because you can quote the Tao Te Ching and say, oh, this is what, the ancient masters said. Or you can say, okay, step up against somebody and, have an interaction, push, move, place your weight in a certain way. And that movement, that physical movement, it becomes the explanation of the philosophical concept. So you have a physicality, which is you can immediately engage with. And then the light bulb goes off, like, oh yeah, that's that concept. Like there's a ton of Taoist ideas like Wu Wei, which is non-action. Well, it's translated as non-action, but that's not quite the correct translation. But it's really hard to understand what Wu Wei is, even though it's a fundamental aspect of Taoism and of life, actually. But it's really easy to understand once you start doing Tai Chi and do a little bit of push hands, which is a two-person kind of back and forth. Wu Wei becomes immediately understandable, like on an organic level. You're like, oh yeah, you just Wu Wei'd your way through a session.
I love that. I love that. It feels like from what you're explaining, it sounds like it's something that surpasses the verbal language, and you understand it from experience, which these
Absolutely.
are some of the most beautiful things in the world, when something can only be understood through experience rather than verbal language.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, I mean, it's a fundamental idea in Taoism. Like one of the first lines is, the Tao that can be named is not the real Tao. So the whatever you can put a label on, is not the label is not really the object, right? The map is not a terrain. So just because you have a word for it doesn't mean that you have an understanding of it. You need to experience it in order to actually truly understand it. So that's why having a physical practice is so important.
Wow, great. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I'm most definitely inspired.
Excellent.
So, Eva, would you like to share some more about your transition of like where you were before sex coaching and how you came to where you are now?
Um, sure. I was a little jolted here. I was ready to answer my question. um,
Oh,
do you want
we
me to?
can, we can, we can go to that first. What is the most important thing in life for you?
Because I was really, sorry. I was just, I was listening to beauty, and it's like my choice, and it's like, how do you choose one sentence or one word for,
I
the most
know.
important thing? It depends on the moment, but I think
Hmm.
pleasure to me was the word that I chose. And it just interweaves so beautifully with the concept of beauty. Um,
Yeah.
People, there's so many definitions of pleasure. What does that mean? It's a beautiful walk on a sunny day, or um, great sex, or what does that mean to you?
Hmm.
And is there beauty within that? Is there love at the base of that? Um, I think. Um,
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
and
So yeah, how do you bring more pleasure into what you do and what you bring to the world?
well, as far as working with my clients, I I like to create a very sex positive environment, a very uplifting environment. Um, and one of the things that I like to encourage right from the very start is self pleasure.
Hmm.
And Chris was talking about understanding the body. Understand your own body first. If you really have
Absolutely.
that wisdom and that study, that intimate personal study of what does your body like, where do you find pleasure
Hmm.
in your own body, then it's easy to share that with another person or
Hmm.
lots of other people. So I like to I like to help people to understand that. It's like a lot of people don't like to talk about self pleasure.
No,
Um, and I like to make the topic of sex a lot more accessible and easy to talk about.
it is. It
Yeah.
is. There is some, there's like some kind of like taboo line. Like people are open to talk about sex to some degree. And then the moment you start to talk about self-pleasure, people are like, oh my God. And but what's really interesting is it's so much religion and cultural conditioning that's confined people to these walls in which they feel like that is a taboo, when in fact it is probably the most natural thing that we can experience, and should be the first way we experience sexual pleasure with ourselves. But like you said, to get to know our bodies first, and thoroughly.
I know it's great. Yeah, it's sometimes I like to use things like meditation or music therapy to help people tune into that. And sometimes just talking about it
Mm-hmm.
is so liberating for some people.
Mm-hmm.
I created a card deck for some of my clients to use just to have the ability to open up conversations about sex with their partners or even
That's a really great idea.
yeah. So yeah.
So I can imagine in that line of work, so many people like, freeze and don't really know where to begin. So like that's a really great way to, you know, gently open people up.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Great. So what's my most important thing in the world? Well, on one of the other calls, I said authenticity, staying true to authenticity. However, today, like you said today, it's always different each day. Today, the word that came to me first and strongest was vulnerability, openness. And for me, I think this is so important because we live in a world where everyone's supposed to be strong and just getting on with things and carrying the weight of the world and not showing emotion and just letting everything build up for the sake of keeping face, while on the inside they are crumbling. And you know, especially these days, Instagram makes everything look perfect when in actual fact we are all having this human experience, and we would not be having this human experience unless we had lessons to learn. And most of the lessons are not like skipping through a park with honey and roses, meaning that they are difficult lessons, meaning that we are all, every single one of us, go through difficult experiences and are vulnerable at points. And this, keeping this mask of being strong and fine and coping with everything all the time, is actually really what is keeping people excluded from themselves, their lovers, their families, communities, because they don't want to, their pride is too big in the way. And this is not insulting people, it is just a conditioning that has been passed down, and it's up to now us to work on ourselves in some way to open that. And you know, when we share vulnerably, what will happen is like so many other people will be like, oh my God, me too. Wow, I was going through a similar thing. And then what happens is this community of people who are on all either the same level, like the same frequency, the same understanding, or people who have gone through it, and it interlinks and webs this community of people together and creates like shared understanding and compassion, which opens so many doors for people to truly heal and access their really deeply wounded places. Because when they share vulnerably and other people reach out to them and like, yes, I understand you. I feel where you're coming from. That lets people know, like, it lets us feel like, wow, it's okay for me to feel like this. It's okay for me to do this. I don't need to have my shit together all the time in a picture perfect way. And that just is the true turning point for alchemy within the soul, to actually surrender to what's going on, to surrender to the feelings. And that is when they can begin to finally be processed and felt and moved through and out and accepted. So yeah, that was obviously supposed to be my word today because it came out passionately. So how do I bring more of this into the world? So 6 years ago I became a yoga teacher, and I loved it. It was the most incredible thing, helping people, sharing with people, helping people do something that was great for them that they had chosen to come to do. Because many people who are in this healing path, we have all kind of rooted for a similar place of people pleasing, wanting to help others. And before we came into it as a profession, most of us were spending a lot of time helping those who did not want to be helped. So then for me, the moment I was teaching yoga and people were showing up because they wanted to be taught, they wanted to make better changes, was like mind blowing. Anyway, so then 3 years ago, I was totally blocked. I had just been through a huge trauma related to a very abusive partner, which involved sexual abuse and everything like that all together. And I was blocked from yoga. I couldn't get on my mat. And I'm sharing this vulnerably because I know there'll be people watching this who, well, it will resonate with, especially with what I'm about to say. So I was blocked from yoga. I couldn't do it. I would look at my mat rolled up and I was like, I can't even unroll that. I can't. And there was such a block. And it was because subconsciously I was not, my subconscious realized if you get on that mat and open out your muscles, all of that trauma is going to come up. And at that time, I was not in a safe place. I was living with a family member who was very toxic. So I went from one toxic situation to another one. So my nervous system was not in a safe place to release. Anyway, fast forward some months after that, I was staying somewhere else, was safe. And it was like 3, 4 months or something. I didn't practice yoga. And because I wasn't practicing yoga, I wasn't meditating afterwards. And from having done that every day for years, to then nothing for months, my brain was like going to explode. And then eventually one day I was like, you know what, stop putting pressure on yourself, because I put so much pressure on myself to do my asana practice the way I had been taught by my master, blah blah blah. Anyway, one day something snapped, got on the mat, because I had been praying to my ancestors, praying to my guides, had been talking with them. I was like, please, I need to find the strength to move this through and out of me. Anyway, this day I got on my mat and I had like this like shamanic with like kind of, it's, the genre is called organic house. I hate that name, but it's called organic house with like shamanic vibes in it. So I had this on, and this beautiful thing was born, and it was a combination of yoga and dance together. And basically what this helped me do was this helped me move that sexual trauma all the way through and out of me without having to hold asanas, because I was fluid with it. And this is why I was blocked, because yoga, the asana practice I was doing was masculine, and I needed to be vulnerable and surrender into my feminine to communicate with my nervous system that it was safe for me to allow those emotions to come out. So basically this became the crux, the foundation of what I offer to people. And initially I was only teaching to women, because it's really all situated around the womb. As you know, I was like, oh my God, this Satan-like man's energy is within me. Oh, good God. Oh my God, is it going to affect my future kids? It's going to affect my future partner. Oh, I have to be celibate. I was freaking out. So I was praying and praying and praying every day, like, please give me some tool to help me cleanse my womb. Anyway, so, and it really did, like when within these movements that was gifted from me, it was not a conscious thing. It moves things through and out, and the way it moves things through and out is through full body orgasms that comes from it. Anyway, fast forward again, I've been teaching this class, women, it's called the Women Empowering Yoga Dance, for the women only one. And then for the all gender one, which is slightly different, it's called Shashi Soul Dance. And during this, throughout this practice, I openly encourage people to open the voice, to let everything out. You know, when you move and there's like a sigh needing out, and I'm like, no, turn up the volume on that. Let it be a scream. Let it out, and the body understands, and it opens and releases, and it's so powerful. So yeah, this is what I do and how I bring it to the world, is I help people to step into the places where they're vulnerable and afraid to be vulnerable. It's a safe place for people to cry, to scream, to whatever, to let it all out. If someone's got rage, there's a pillow there, just go beat the shit out of it. to and so many people aren't comfortable with dealing with an experience and feeling those big emotions, never mind showing them in front of someone else. So this is why I think it's so important to hold spaces like this, to allow people to be vulnerable and know that they are safe and that this is healthy and they're letting it out in a healthy way and liberating their mind, bodies, souls, and energies of that stagnant, heavy energy. Sorry, I'm on a roll. Because that heavy energy that we're holding in is a frequency which is weighing our energetic body down. And, you know, law of attraction, whatever we are, we attract. So the more and longer we are holding on to all that shit inside, the more we are going to keep attracting that. So yeah, my absolute motto is feel it to heal it. Inhale the light, exhale the shite. Sorry, this is my Scottish bringing out the swear words. I do apologize. Probably not supposed to swear on here. I kind of forgot about that. So yeah, that's me. So do either two of you have anything you would like to say going off of anything I just said there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, getting in tune with your body. Yoga dance really brought up a memory for me. My music therapy instructor, who actually encouraged me to go into sexology. The very last time that I saw her, we were in a yoga dance class together. And she passed away like a year later.
Aww.
I never saw her again. But that was just one of the most amazing memories. But what a special thing to help people process through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Powerful.
And I would add that it's one of our main obstacles is that growing up in a Western culture, we have this idea that mind and body are separate, right? That we are a soul that is riding inside of a body like we're driving a little car, and which is completely false. Mind and body are one, right? So the body itself is an expression of the mind, is an expression of the soul. So by working on the body, you work on psychological aspects. You know, when you work on psychological aspects, you actually release tension in the body. So both that, which is why, you know, dancing and anything like that, or like you were saying, vocalizing, has such an impact, because it's a way of releasing, like using the body to release these tensions that are deep in the back of our minds. And I think it is something that we really need to face, is that, you know, no, your body is an expression of yourself. You do not exist without your body, right? So the relationship you have with your body is essentially the relationship you have with part of yourself. If you deny your body, you're denying literally, you know, 90% of who you are as a person, because you would be a different person if you had no legs. You would have to, you know, address the world in a completely different way. So who you are, how your body is, how you maintain your body, how you relate to your body, is an expression of who you are. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. You know, like what's interesting is like when we all have physical pains within the body, most people don't really want to realize that it is rooted in emotional pain. And actually, on the note of specifically for this topic, the power of orgasms really has the ability to release a lot of emotional pain. And actually, for me, because for women, the heart and the cervix are really directly connected. Did you know that you probably do? The tip of the head of a man's penis and the clitoris are both the reflexology points for the heart. So when people a man and a woman are having sex and the cervix and the tip of the head touches, it is literally opening their hearts. So I find like a lot of people with like a lot of clients that I do, when they talk about having heart blockage issues and they can't feel things, like one of the biggest things I recommend them to do is self-pleasure, but specifically to find the cervix and to stimulate and open, to consciously send like a message from the finger to the cervix to allow it to open. And I can talk from experience. That is so powerful to open emotions and knowing where those emotions are stored within the body. It's incredible. Like it was even just like a few days ago, I was feeling really trapped in my heart, and I was like, okay, there's something's trying to come out here and it's stuck. So I engaged in this practice, and okay, so yeah, I felt great for a few hours, and then it started to really come up, and then all the tears came out. Like it's it's incredible the self intimacy in general, either whether it's self intimacy or intimacy with others, is has the potential to move so many emotions within us, and it can be for good. It can definitely be an incredible way to do it. Uh, and sometimes, if we're not careful with the partners we choose and things, it can go the opposite way. If it's unconscious, people who are engaging in sexual activity to fill a void rather than for connection. Don't know if either I can talk for ages on this, but I'm interested to see if either of you two have anything you would like to add to that specific topic.
Yeah,
Topics.
oh, um, yeah, I like to utilize things like breath work, like breathing from the perineum and then up into the vocal cords, which mine are kind of damaged right now, but and then back and forth, and it's something that any body can do. It's like I don't have a cervix or a uterus, but I have a perineum, and men have a perineum. Most everybody has a perineum, so it's something that is pretty universal as far as taking that breath, visualizing it, moving it up and down. And you can even bring it as high as the third eye, or you can take it to your heart center, depending
I
on
love her.
just going back and forth. And just it's like a rocking with your breath within to really, really tune into yourself.
Beautiful.
And I would say that one thing we need to become a little more conscious of in our daily lives are the relationships that we have with the world around us, because sex doesn't just, when we talk about sex, it's like, oh, it's this act, it's this thing that happens, and again, it's this kind of very mechanical viewpoint of it. But actually, set and setting are very important. Or whether you're are you stressed? Are you tired? Are you in a place, in your life where your energy is low, or either are you depressed? Are you on the other side? Are you excited about life? Are you full of joy? Those things will affect how you relate both to yourself and to your partner. So the quality of the sex, but also like the quality in terms of like the emotions, your ability to connect will be affected by everything that's around you. And I think it's important for people to start kind of thinking about that, so that you don't set up expectations. You don't start thinking, okay, now we're going to have sex and it's going to be fantastic. And it's like, meanwhile, you're in the middle of doing your taxes. You had a full day of work. It's like, well, that's not going to work. You're not going to have that experience because everything around you is an influence on you. So we have to kind of start first of all, forgiving ourselves and like going, okay, it's okay. What is the environment in which I'm interacting with my partner or even with yourself? Is this environment conducive to a full release and opening of the heart, that full body orgasm and all that kind of stuff? Because if you give yourself that goal and you ignore the circumstances, you're going to fail, and then that starts a negative feedback loop, right? So in some ways there has to be this kind of sitting with where you are in your own life, both physically, emotionally, professionally, all of those things, and see, is this a good time? Is there actually, in order to change my sex life, is there something in my life that I need to change? Because that's actually the bigger obstacle, right? Before I can get to having a sex life. do you need to create time and space? Right? Do you need to say, you know what? I'm going to set aside that evening. I'm going to make sure that all the chores are done. I make sure that, if you have kids, that the kids are at grandma's or whatever, and where you create a space that then is conducive to those experiences, right? Because otherwise, and otherwise, basically, you're inviting failure, which is then can be bad. And this is where paying attention to cycles becomes very important, because for both men and women, we both have cycles, whether it's physical cycles or, like, for men, also have daily cycles. For women, the most important cycle is going to be the menstrual cycle. Where are you in your cycle is going to determine whether or not you're going to have an easier or harder orgasm, right? Or an easier or harder way to reach orgasm. So taking that into consideration can greatly help that opening, right? Getting to, like you were talking about, of opening the heart and using sex as a way of connecting and healing. It has to be done at the right time and in the right setting, because otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So it's this broadening of the awareness, and this is where, so in the same way that the soul, or the mind and spirit, is not separate from the body. Mind and spirit are, mind and body are one. We also have a social body. We also have a body which is interacting with the world around us. And we have to then start becoming aware of that awareness, of that connection. It's like, what is this greater body of yours? Is it healthy? Are you surrounded by people who love you? Or do you have healthy relationships? Do you have healthy connections? Are you eating healthily? Because that greater social body is then going to influence your personal body, and that personal body is going to influence your sexual relationship, or your sexual aptitude, your ability to have those deeper connections. So it's this kind of broadening the viewpoint in order to come back to that one moment of, the orgasm as a heart opening moment.
Yeah, I like that. It's sort of, once again, getting into the body, finding the beauty, finding the pleasure. When I'll up here, it's like, oh, I have chores, I have work, I have taxes, and it's like, and it's and then some people try to go from here to their genitals and back again, and it's like, no, it's like, you've got to find a way, and it takes practice. Find a way to embrace your whole body. I like that, the social body too. That's a big part of it. How do you relate to others, whether it's your partner or your whole family or society at large? But definitely, once again, getting back into knowing your body.
Yeah. I also think, like, nutrition is what you were talking about, eating well for your body. That's such a hugely important factor, like, because there's so many people that have underlying intolerances and things, and they don't want to understand it because they don't want to give it up. But it's reducing their energy, it's lowering their frequency, it's lowering everything. And if your energy's brought way down and you feel shit, you feel bloated, you feel uncomfortable in your own body, how are you expected to have a beautiful connection with your partner, with your lover, if you don't even feel good in your own body and you're actively self-sabotaging and self-abusing your own body? Like, it's hugely important, especially nowadays, where if you buy, unless you're buying whole foods, if you look at the back of things, there are so many different God knows what in it that you can't even pronounce. Like, that's not meant for a body. That is not meant for a body, and the body understands that that is not food, and that you're feeding it poison, and that poison starts to affect the body, starts to affect the energy, it ripples out.
Yep. Yep. If you can't pronounce it on the label, it's like, it's not food. For sure.
Actually, do you know what? When I was on one of the other panels, she's actually a nutrition coach, this girl, she was like, if you can't say it, your mind will, if you can't even say what it is, your body sure as hell does not understand what it is. And it's just going to create so many problems within. And like that is the thing, you know, our body is a sacred vessel. And if we harm it in any way through excessively through food, through alcohol, through no conscious movements or exercise, it's going to deteriorate. And also as well, not even that. I was talking to one of my friends about this. She's like, "Oh, I did some exercise today. I exercised the house and I carried my little girl to the beach." And I was like, you know, like when we choose to move in a conscious way, either through martial arts or for me, my dance, or for others, swimming, running, you're making a conscious decision to your soul, your body, to honor that as a sacred vessel and to purify it. And I believe that there's a really big difference in taking the time to be like, okay, this is my practice time for whatever your practice is, rather than just, oh, my day was a little bit more physically exertive than usual. The soul understands. And like every time we make those steps to honor our sacred vessel, our vitality and sacral energy like gets vamped up. It's like, thank you for taking care of me. I love you just as much as you love me. And this beautiful spiral starts. And this is when we start to become magnetic, and with that magnetism we attract beauty and pleasure and abundance. So
Yep.
yeah, nutrition is important.
Yes. Riffing a little bit on that, there's also the issue of, so not having just physical nourishment, but also kind of emotional nourishment, right? Because I think one of the main problems that we have in our modern society is that we've all become so separated, right? We've become atomized, we're just units, you know, to be measured and used, and you're a number for your bank and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have, I think we're all starved for connection, and we're not using the heart as an organ of connection, right? Because what we're meant to do essentially is to open up the heart, right? Whether it's the heart chakra, the middle dantian, whatever you want to call it, it's an organ of communication, right? It's how we connect with everybody around us. So when you're surrounded by families and friends, that heart connection is used. There is connection there, so you're getting fed, you feel the joy. I mean, that's why something, just being around friends, there is a joy, there's an openness that is there. And that's the same openness of the heart that you have to have in order to have good sex, essentially, right? Because like you were saying, like the heart, the cervix, everything is connected. So if your heart is starved or is unused, you know, the heart as an energetic organ of communication, right? If it's starved, then it means that when you're going into sex, you're going it the same way as a hungry person goes into a deli. You know, it's like you're not eating the right things. You're not, because you're so starved for it that you're just going to go and eat whatever crap is there that's first, that's the first thing
That's
that you
a
see.
really good analogy.
So we also have to work on creating connections, social connections, personal connections. They don't have to be sexual necessarily, but if you don't have that practice, then you're always coming at the sexual experience from, in a way, the wrong place. Either you're starving for connection, in which case you're not really connecting, you're just kind of using the other person, or because you haven't used your heart enough, essentially, you're stunted. Right. So now your connection to your partner, but also to yourself, is not as deep as it should be. So part of it is also either there's meditations focusing specifically on the heart, or by consciously deciding to make connection with people, of opening up yourself to other people and being present, so that when you have a conversation with somebody else, you're not sitting in your head, but you're sitting in your heart, and you're going, how can I connect with this other person? Can I have a relationship with the other person. And the more you do that, the more you train your heart essentially to be open and to be receptive, the more then you can take that same skill and bring it back towards yourself and towards your partner when you're having sex. So that's, I think it's, again, it's one of those kind of exterior things, external aspects, but we have to start consciously fighting, because our culture is telling us to cut off that emotional connection, that heart-centered connection. So that's what we're told by our culture. So we need to consciously decide, no, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to train my heart.
Well said. I love that. It's something that is very needed in this world. You know, like I was talking about before with being vulnerable. And I think what so many people are afraid about is if they open their heart, all of that pain is going to come out. And what if they open that, they open it and that pain, that anger comes out and their partner runs and leaves and abandons them because they're afraid they'll lose their partner if they express that. And it's just it's creating a malnourished heart, like you say. And you know, we really do have to work on opening this to allow us to be connected. Like, if you look at our ancestors, we're all living together, everyone helping each other. And like, you know, in the villages where everybody had their own roles and shared duties, shared responsibilities. So not everything was all on one person. And I think in this day and age, like most people really struggle with a lot of feeling overburdened and pressured with responsibilities, and they don't know how to cope in this as a, you know, a symptom. It shuts down their heart. But yeah, I think as well, you know, an easy way. There's not really an easy way. Accessible way to get out of that is what, like I've always talked, or even I was talking about, breath work. You know, because it's something that can be done everywhere at any time, and it's so accessible to literally every person. Iva, would you want to talk more about your experience with the breath work and how it's helped you and others, maybe?
Oh, yeah, it's that's another big topic. I know one of the things that I like to share with other people, or to, you know, have my clients share it with their partner, is to get to stand close together and just to look at one another, and then to hug one another, and to imagine, you know, that you're hugging um, their skin, their bones, their muscles, and just kind of breathe in unison together, and then back up and keep, you know, do some eye gazing, and then go back together again and find the unity of your breath as you breathe together back and forth, and imagine going deeper where you're actually hugging. You feel the sensation of hugging their organs and
Mm.
the deeper parts of who they are inside of their heart, and
Mm.
just breathe together for a few moments and then come apart. And it's just very simple, but people feel a lot more intimate, or even hugging someone like heart to heart. And so often we hug like this, but if you're hugging heart to heart, you have a sensation that's a lot richer with it.
Mm. Beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So is there any more like specific topics that either of you are very passionate about and wanted to share?
Well, I'm imagining that when this comes out, it'll be the month of May, which just happens to be masturbation month. So, so anybody listening here, you need to investigate this. You know, use it as an excuse to find new ways to find self-pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary word. A lot of people run away from that word. It's like, oh no, we don't talk about that. But yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, actually, so on the note of masturbation, I'm very open and honest about it. All my friends laugh about it. And I like go into details of like how whatever happened, and they're like, oh, it's Neovi again. However, something that I wanted to talk about is that when we're connected to our sexual energy, we're most connected to our higher selves, the divine, God, whatever we want to call it. So, and you know, when we're having a sexual connection, it's beautiful that we can do that with other people. But the beauty of masturbation is you're working with your energy and your energy alone, and you have full control over which direction it goes. You have full control over being able to decide, you know, where you want to direct this powerful, sacred sexual energy. And for me, I use my masturbation as deep healing, and also for manifestation. Um, there are times before when, okay, so it's at the peak of climax, we really set the intention, and there are so many times whatever I have manifested, because normally I use this for deep healing, because when we are, the more healed we are, not the more healed we are because we're always healing and evolving, but when we shift those heavier energies out, we naturally attract more anyway. However, there are times where I have used it for manifestation purposes, and it has come true like that. Like that.
Nice.
And I tell it to my friends, like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. How many crystals did you have up you?
That's great. I'm loving hearing this, because most people are just like, they do the deed and they get on with life, it's just like 10 minutes and they're done. Like, no, stop and
Mm,
appreciate your body, have an intention, find out what
yeah.
magic is all about, and participate in that. Um,
Mm.
Even group masturbation, if you have any friends that would be open to that.
I don't, but I would love to do. I do, but just not in the same country as me. Not accessible.
Darn.
Darn, indeed. But
I
also,
would
yeah, so sorry, carry on.
I would just share. There's one also, since it's masturbation month. One of the things that happens often is that people clench as you approach orgasm, right? And like everything kind of tightens up. And the thing is, that's actually a way of tamping down the sensations. So you're preventing the fullness of the sensations. So one exercise to do is to actually breathe deeply and relax. So at the beginning, it feels like you're dissipating the power of the rising orgasm. But what's happening is actually you're relaxing everything. And then you continue and you're allowing it to build and build and build. So every time that you feel like you're about to reach orgasm, just breathe deeply and relax, 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 and just continue. And what happens is that the feelings keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And energetically, because you're relaxed, it allows then that energy that's generated from the orgasm to actually flow through the whole body, instead of being kind of controlled and tight just in general. So you're relaxing and you're relaxing, you work on relaxing, and so you have a relaxed orgasm. And then if you do energy work, this is where it can shoot straight up the spine into the brain, and this is where you see fireworks, basically, because what you've done is you've amped up the energetic pathways of the body, right? And you're allowing them to flow, and allowing it to just kind of flow to the entire body. So again, relaxing, relax, relax, relax. Deep breath.
Yes, thank you for that, because that makes all the difference in the world. It's I was one of those impatient people with any kind of sex at one point in my life, and to learn to actually relax, to aside a couple of hours to really take the time for that. And that's not something you necessarily want to do every time, whether you're in masturbation or partnered sex or group sex, whatever it is that you're doing. Um, it's, but it's a powerful skill that will, uh, yeah, it'll open some doors for you and make
For
things.
sure.
It's a different
For
experience.
sure. Also, as well, going back a little bit to, it's on a similar topic of not rushing, but, it's of for masturbation, like how people touch themselves is a real representation of what they attract in others. How you touch himself is a really true representation of how you feel about what you deserve. If people are just having a quick, for women, if they're just whipping out a vibrator 2 minutes, they're done. What's that attracting? And I was following this woman who I'm really inspired by. And I literally I've been following her for a while, so I've tried like everything she said, and she's amazing. Goddess molding, actually, is it her? Is Goddess molding is one of her pages anyway. But one of her like most important self-care practices is masturbating in front of a mirror, but like to lay down, to like really set the scene, to like adorn your bed like a true goddess, to take the time for your to bring out the massage oils, to infuse your whole body with intentions with it all, to really go slow and to not just go straight in, to massage your body, to get your body and your own nervous system comfortable with the fact that you are a god or a goddess, and you're about to give yourself and receive slow and prolonged pleasure because you deserve that, not just something that's so convenient and fast and over and done. And interestingly, when I started to embody this practice into my own life, I noticed the type of guys I was attracted into my life were totally different. So yeah, it's very true. How we treat ourselves is a mirror and a magnet for what we attract.
Oh, yeah, mirrors are amazing. But one thing, I do want to add there is not everybody can masturbate in front of a mirror
Mm.
at, at, at the first time.
No, not the first time.
It's a little intimidating for some people.
Yeah.
And it's good to do like whole body instead of, anything sexual or masturbatory, just to stand maybe with just your shirt off and
Mm-hmm.
just part of your body, and then try
Mm-hmm.
it again with all of your clothes. Some people are
Yeah.
so, unfortunately, have a lot of trauma,
Yeah, it's true.
can really bring up a lot of trauma. So it,
Mm. No, that it's true. I mean, I went straight into the deep end there, but you're right,
that's good.
actually,
Good if you can.
even just looking in a mirror, clothed, just looking at your eyes can do it, because the eyes are the doors to the soul. And I know from my own experience, whenever I've not been feeling right, I do that, and I'm just like, okay, I'll just go and sit in the mirror. Because I'm clairvoyant, so I will be able to see what comes out of it, which is sometimes not all that fun. But it is, like what we can look in the mirror, or we can really see into the mirror and see what's there. And we can do that with our clothes on. I think going back to, you're saying about doing it with the clothes off, that's actually a fantastic remedy for eating disorders and body dysmorphia. Um, which I don't know if you do get. Oh, sorry, I'm going down a different route. Because I mean, I know a lot of people who suffer a lot with eating disorders, especially choose sex as their void to um distract themselves from their root issues. I don't know if there's either of you want to jump on again there with your thoughts or experiences, feelings, either on mirrors or no? Okay.
Well, there's gosh, there's a lot of levels. People choose distractions, unhealthy distractions, and unfortunately, it can really scramble your sex life, and that's probably a whole other webinar.
Yeah.
And because you can't cover that particular topic in just a few sentences.
No, that's true. That's so true. I mean,
one thing I'd like to say is, a lot of people in those kinds of situations get labeled as sex addicts or frigid or, whatever angle that they're taking. And I'm a little bit horrified by those kinds of labels when, it's working with somebody and trying to find out
yeah.
what's missing, what's off,
Yeah, absolutely.
how can we move through that.
Actually, and one thing I would like to bring up is that this idea of the labels that you mentioned, that we often have a fixed view of ourselves and relationships and all that. But the one of the kind of the great Taoist insight is the fact that that everything is changing. Like there's perpetual change, and that is the fundamental reality of everything. And the minute that you put a label on something, you've kind of attached yourself to that label, and you said, oh, I have this, or my problem is this, and then you go, well, then you're living the label instead of going, no, everything can change. So whatever issues you're having now will change. If you change something else, then whatever problem you have will change as well. So we're all free. I mean, this is the great freedom that comes actually from this kind of constant transformation, is that you're never stuck somewhere. You're never, whatever issues you have now, you are not those issues. You will always be able to transform them, change them. It might go in a completely different direction. You have no real control over necessarily the transformations, but you will change. And it's really important to kind of free ourselves of the labels, because the labels becomes a box, it becomes a prison that we're in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
I could not agree any more with that, even to the point where going a little bit off topic, I had a lot of food intolerances, and I was talking to Connor from Summit of Light, and he was like, every time you tell your body that you have food intolerances, that's a box you're putting yourself in. And it was so true. And you know what? It was so difficult for me to not say that I have food intolerances, but to just listen to my body and be like, okay, how is this feeling? And like, this is something else of what I do with my work. When I do retreats and things, I do a fire ceremony. And this is part of that, is actually burning our labels too. So I'll get people to be like, what do you do? What's your life? How would you identify yourself? And people put themselves in boxes. I'm a this, I'm a that, da, 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 rather than really speak from who they are. And I do a whole ceremony of like getting them to say goodbye to those things, to allow themselves, their souls, the expansion to grow. To be free of the limitations of the boxes that they had once put themselves in, because that is what it does. It confines us to a box, and there is only so much that we can grow if we're in a box. And there's such a beautiful world out there to expand and explore.
Have we done it? Have we covered the topic?
Sorry, what?
Have we covered the topic? Have we done it?
I think so. I was just getting the So yeah, does anybody else have anything on any other topic they would like to bring up? They would like to share any little more insights? Also, yeah, actually, if people want to work with you, I will collect your socials and we can put this, it will be on the last slide of this here, of this session here, this panel. So is there, do you want to talk more about what you do? Or shall I just leave it for your socials to explain?
Well, I could show off my cards.
Really? I love that. I love cards.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun deck, and it's just really it's kind of a how to break the ice. You've got some instruction cards that kind of give you ideas and stuff like that, and then got several cards that you can play it different ways. You can lay them out like tarot, or you can just pick a couple randomly and say, "Oh, let's try this."
Great.
Yeah, and there's things like tease and suck and whisper and scream and making lists of things that you might like to consider that you've never done before. So
Great.
yeah,
So can people are those cards available for people to buy on your website or
they
from
are.
somewhere?
They are.
Great. Okay, great. We'll make sure that's all listed then so
Yeah,
people have got direct access to it.
yeah. They can contact me directly too if they.
Great. Okay, then I think we have covered a lot today. And I think it's time to wrap up our discussion. I'm sure this is to everyone who's going to be watching this. I'm sure you will all receive inspiration from this discussion. And I would like to thank our lovely panel for everything they've shared with us, our hosts, and for joining the Summit of Light. Your all access pass for the Summit of Light 2023 and have the ability to access this knowledge for life that we are all sharing. Thank you very much for watching and for listening to us all. Goodbye from me, Neovi.
Thank you both.
Goodbye. Have a good day.